Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of the opening scene of Stranger Things Season 5. The first 5 minutes that Netflix released last week. This flashback to Will's first time in the Upside Down in 1983 during Season 1 as a de-aged 12-year-old reframes everything we know about this series and Vecna's involvement with the whole series events and what to expect when the final season begins on November 26th. So in this video, I'm going to break down these opening 5 minutes for all the details you missed, and yeah, as we get closer to Thanksgiving, New Rockstars is going to have you covered with a comprehensive recap of Stranger Things Season 1 through Season 4 so that you're properly caught up. And yeah, I'm wearing this cool Freddy and Jason shirt that rocks! And you can get this exclusively at our merch store, nerdriot.shop. Alright, the opening scene of Stranger Things 5 starts at Castle Byers in the Upside Down, the fort in the woods made by Will and his brother Jonathan that Will sought refuge in the Upside Down version of when he was kidnapped and taken to the Upside Down on the night of November 6th, 1983. Jonathan and Will built Castle Byers on the night their father, Lonnie, left Joyce and moved to Indianapolis. We focus on the part of the sign that says Home of Will the Wise, really underlining Will's D&D character name as the Wizard, given how important this series really was to the renaissance of D&D, not among the diehards like you who have always been playing, but really the lay people who just begun casually doing it since 2016. Really, I think the exact roles, designations, the threats, the quests, the map placement as it was on that night in 1983 are going to be incredibly important to the final act of this story. Somehow, I know it will. I know it will! The Duffer Brothers have said that they plan to address why Will was chosen to go into the Upside Down on that night, suggesting that the creature he nearly ran into on his bike was not there by happenstance, like many of us assumed, but actually sought out and targeted this boy in particular. I started to pose some odd theories as to why in our recent final trailer breakdown, and I don't know if I even agree with those theories, but one possibility I haven't talked about does have to do with Will's dad, Lonnie Byers, and what we learned about all these characters in the play, Stranger Things: The First Shadow, which premiered in December 2023 after Season 4 came out, and the play is absolutely canon to the story of the Netflix series. The Duffer Brothers wrote both. In fact, we'll probably break down that play in a separate video in the coming weeks, but essentially, Joyce, then known as Joyce Maldonado, and her future husband Lonnie Byers, and a young Jim Hopper, and a younger version of Bob Newby, and Henry Creel. Yeah, the future Vecna. They all went to high school together, and they get into some shit in the play back in the year 1959. Lonnie actually sits in the seat that Henry Creel was supposed to sit in. So maybe there was always something about the second son of the boy and girl Henry Creel knew back in 1959. The play largely explores Henry Creel's past and how he went into Dimension X before Eleven sent him back there and the events of Stranger Things Season 4. And we know from the Netflix series that Lonnie Byers was not the best guy, totally a homophobe who shamed Will over his sexuality. And while I'm not here doubting Lonnie's paternity over Will, I just wouldn't be surprised if this final season references some of that history from the play could have included a curse or some element from Dimension X that Henry Creel put on Joyce that later manifested in her second son. Or maybe Creel/Vecna just always remembered that Byers family and wanted to come back for them. But now poor Will sings the Clash's Should I Stay or Should I Go? Of course, the record that Will and Jonathan listened to in the Season 1 flashback, that was Season 1 Episode 2, in order to drown out the sounds of Will and Lonnie fighting. Now Will is trying to reassure himself, but it's also a literal question for the context of the scene. Like, should Will stay where he is or get the hell out of there? You'll remember this is exactly how Will appeared at the end of Season 1 Episode 7, the bathtub, shivering like this in Castle Byers and singing the same song. Remember that episode ended with the Demogorgon breaking through just like this, but we never saw what exactly happened after that. Now we do. And I love revisiting this history from Will's perspective because our assumption is that Will was a total victim that whole time, hiding in Castle Byers as he was growing weaker and weaker from the toxic spore-filled air of the Upside Down, getting all wet, and then getting snagged by the Demogorgon here and just immediately taken to the Upside Down version of the Hawkins library with that shit latched onto his GI tract when Joyce and Hopper found him. But now we learn he put up way more of a fight. He evaded capture by showing some bravery and impressive parkour. Now, for this opening scene, they de-aged Noah Schnapp to look as he did when he was 11, playing the 12-year-old version of Will in Season 1. Schnapp actually told SFX magazine, "It was weird. I will say that I had to work with a younger kid, which was actually really cool and a full circle moment for me because I felt like, oh wow, now I'm the adult telling this kid what to do, and I'm no longer the little boy being told where to stand. It just helped me reflect on all the years that passed. And he was a really sweet kid, and I got my little taste of directing and worked with him for a few days on set to get his physicality and running and breath work the same as mine. Then they put me in a tent and had me do all these different expressions and faces like fear and running and all these things. It was so weird. And then the VFX team worked on it for months, I mean, there were these VFX people who told me, Noah, I've been working with 11-year-old you for the past 6 months, watching every video of you. It's like, oh, that's weird. And then they stamped it onto that little kid, and we got this cool little flashback scene, which is fun. And hey, I gotta say, at least here in Castle Byers, this DH Will looks pretty good. And I honestly think it's because they had so much of the visual reference from the version of this shot in season 1. When he's running around, and specifically when he's at the top of the tree, doesn't look as good. But back in the Hawkins library, it looks really good again, because again, they had a visual reference to that setup from season 1. Today's video is sponsored by Blue Chew. Every time November rolls around, everybody starts busting out their hot takes about food. But when you hear people talking about their favorite stuffing, all you can think about is stuffing your all over the place, but you can't because of erectile dysfunction. The side dish you might want for Thanksgiving this year is Blue Chew. Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. These erection enhancing tablets can help men achieve stronger, harder, and longer lasting erections for sexual activities. Getting started with Blue Chew is super easy. Just sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. You can take Blue Chew anytime, day or night. That way you can plan ahead or be ready for some spontaneity. It's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. Make life easier by getting harder and discover your options at bluechew.com. And they've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of Blue Chew free when you use promo code Rockstars. Just pay $5 shipping. That's promo code Rockstars. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information, and we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. Now, Will sits up as he sees a shadow pass outside the walls of his fort, a shadow cast by something invisible. Then the Demogorgon tears into the fort with the simpler, smoother design that it had with the VFX the Duffers could afford back in 2016. But now the rest of the story begins, because we see that Will does what he was unable to do in his backyard garage in that cold open of the pilot episode, actually fire that rifle to get a shot that totally pushes back the Demogorgon. Now Will sets off running. Again, this stunt work was done by a younger stand-in, but as the Demogorgon roars after him, we see something that we did not see in the Upside Down in season 1, red lightning. My guess is that season 5 is going to suggest that these bolts were crackling through the sky back then in season 1, but we just did not see them in the shots that we saw. But the choice to add them now, in addition to providing some Netflix colored contrast to these blue scenes, is a kind of color-coded retcon of Vecna's influence from Dimension X having always been part of the Upside Down. In fact, these lightning bolts could be his kind of searchlight over the Upside Down. And as more of that red lightning lights up the sky, Will climbs up this barren tree and waits, looking down into the haze to see if the Demogorgon followed. Now this thing pulls a bear move and proves it can climb trees. When Will leaps from his branch to the branch of a neighboring tree, the lightning flashing perfectly behind his suspended form, which kind of feels like a camera snapshot on Will, the camera of Vecna, locating exactly where Will is. But the branches are too brittle to hold Will, and he crashes down, hitting every branch of that ugly tree on the way down until his backpack catches and the strap adjuster slides that plagued all of us as kids do their part here in failing Will. The backpack, though, stays on the tree. And actually, in the season 5 trailer, there is a shot of Will and Robin in the Upside Down looking up in a location that looks like this. Maybe they're trying to relocate that backpack, and something important that Will left inside has been in there all this time. Maybe something that was part of that particular night's D&D session. The Demogorgon drags Will by his feet all the way to the Hawkins library and then backs away and bows in respect to the being it serves, Vecna. And in Vecna's design here, you'll notice one of his arms has extended into its deformed texture. The other one is still vaguely human. So unlike his new fully armored form in season 5, he's still in his state of physical transition from when 11 banished him back to Dimension X. It's pretty creepy to think that when Hopper and Joyce find Will in this location, Vecna was probably right there, watching his old classmates from the shadows. He wanted them to rescue Will. Now, there's already a lot of speculation out there that the silhouette that Will saw on Mirkwood when he was on his bike was not the Demogorgon, but could have actually been Vecna. Obviously, the Duffers intended it to be the Demogorgon when they shot the pilot episode all those years ago, but you know what I'm saying? Maybe the idea is that they're gonna retcon that mysterious shot to have it actually be Vecna, because remember, we did not see the Demogorgon in his true petal-headed form in a shot until later in the season. And sure, I guess you could argue that it actually was Vecna who approached Will in the shed when that light bulb burned bright, and that's why the threat just kind of appeared from out of nowhere on the other side of a locked door, and Will was just too paralyzed with fear to raise his rifle, whereas now with the Demogorgon, he's going full Ralphie Parker.
Now you get yours.
Hey, I really like this theory. I I don't know if I agree with it. Like, if Vecna got Will that early, how would Will have gotten away from Vecna to be able to survive in the Upside Down for a week? It's clear that Vecna controls the Demogorgons and sent this Demogorgon out to capture Will, but I think it was a good cop, bad cop routine so that Will would fear the Demogorgon and might be more open to working with Vecna. I mean, Vecna must have allowed Will to be taken into the Upside Down with his rifle for a reason, right? Either way, this scene now does confirm that it was Vecna who implanted Will with those slugs that he would later cough up in Christmas 1983. Now we see the seed material that would become those slugs come from this gross, slimy seed pod and pumps through a tube, not unlike the Xenomorph Queen in Aliens pumping Xenomorph eggs through her abdomen. But the visual effect here is the appendage that the Mind Flayer used in season 3 when he flayed Tom Holloway, editor of the Hawkins Post, and his wife Janet. Now we know this wasn't just the Mind Flayer, this was Vecna too. But now with Will, as we intercut with Vecna's face straining for all of this, that's a choice. Vecna says,
"At long last, we can begin. You and we are going to do such beautiful things together, William."
Oh, poor Will is crying tears as this thing is in his mouth. The beautiful things that Vecna wants to create, I assume, are probably the baby Demogorgons that Vecna is using Will and potentially others to incubate. But the plans have to be grander than that, right? If Will is specifically targeted for a reason. And that leads me to ask, why does Vecna call him William? Kind of like a father calling his son by his full birth name. Or could it be a nod to William the Conqueror, the first king of England who established the 1,000-year dynasty that exists to this day? Comment down below with your thoughts and theories, and a special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Bro, for supporting us at the executive producer level. Follow me at EA Voss, subscribe to all the channels in the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love, and big thanks to Studio Tech Brian Kim, New Rockstars editors Joshua Stephen Hurd and Abby Freel, and supporting editors Song Kiatpiriya and Eric Gorday for all their hard work on this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.